Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Green Malcolm. Today, we're going to be doing something different. We're going to be doing a ranking video. What we're going to be ranking today is all of the children's books, like every single children's books that I read and I own that are in my book collection. So, every single children's book that I read and I own and I enjoyed. And also we're going to be including some classics, and we're also going to be including a few novels and some graphic novels. There is one children's book that I have that I didn't finish reading it yet. So we're gonna put that aside, but I will tell you the name of it. It's Charlotte's Web. I haven't finished reading it yet. I will finish reading it. Also, another warning is that there's going to be a lot of Shel Silverstein because I am a Shel Silverstein fanboy. So, yeah, we're just going to get right to it. Let's go. First on our list, we got Falling Up, a Shel Silverstein classic, his very last published book. Never read this a whole lot growing up. I think I only read this once, and that was it. I did enjoy it. I enjoyed the poems in it, but I never read it that much. Next up, we got The Very Hungry Caterpillar. I absolutely loved this book growing up. I read it so much, and I think we actually owned it growing up. Everybody knows the story. It's a classic. Everybody knows it, and honestly, as a young child, it honestly got me hooked on it. And I just loved it, and it's become one of my favorites. And every time I read it, I just get so much nostalgia. Next up, we got Madeline. This one I did enjoy reading this growing up, but, I just never read it that much. I only read it a few times. I liked the cover. I liked the cover of the book. I thought the cover was pretty cool. I never read it that much. I enjoyed the story now, although the story is kind of a little bit deep and kind of sad. I enjoyed it. I actually have a Madeline plushie, as you can. Well, I made a short saying that I got a Madeline plushie. I enjoyed this book. I never read it that much, but I enjoy the story now. There. Long story short. Next up, we got Where the Sidewalk Ends, another Shel Silverstein book. I can't tell you how much I love this book. This one's definitely one of my all-time favorite children's books of all time. It's actually my favorite Shel Silverstein book. I cannot tell you how many times I've read this book. I did own other Shel Silverstein books growing up, but this one I loved reading. I read this one the most, and I still love it to this day. I think it's a masterpiece. And not bad for his first poetry collection. I think it's a masterpiece, and I think it kept me hooked growing up, and I thought it was a great book. Next up, we got Corduroy. I don't know how you pronounce his name. I never read this book a whole lot growing up, but I did include. I did like looking at the cover of the book growing up. I never read it that much growing up. I read it, I think I read it a few times, but not a whole lot. I just liked looking at the cover. We owned it, but I just liked looking at the cover of the book. And then recently I actually read it, and I realized that the story was pretty touching and honestly a very beautiful lesson to the story. And honestly, I think it's a pretty good book. Next up, we got Harold and the Purple Crayon. This one, oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how many times I've read this book. Well, I haven't read it that much, but the point here is that this is another classic and also another book I absolutely enjoyed. I actually think one time I actually forgot the name of the book. I do remember the Purple Crayon being in my head. I just forgot the name of the character. But no, pretty good book. I really enjoyed it. I still enjoy it to this day. I think that the story is fantastic, and I think it's very calming. And I honestly think, although it's a little bit sad, I honestly think the story is very calming. It was very calming to me growing up, and I think it's calming to a lot of children. Next up, we got A Giraffe and a Half, another Shel Silverstein book, but The only issue is that I didn't even know this book existed growing up. I did read this recently, however, and I thought that this book was, it was pretty simple. I enjoyed it, and not bad for one of his first books, one of his first children's books. This book is filled with a lot of simple rhymes, and honestly, it's just a book full of simple rhymes, and I honestly think that, it's pretty good. Next up, we got Where the Wild Things Are. This one, everybody knows this story. Everybody, and I literally mean everybody knows this story. It's a classic. It's probably the most famous children's book ever. And it'll keep you hooked. The only problem with that I ran into is that I never read it that much growing up. I don't know. There was just something about it I didn't like. I don't know if it was maybe the pictures, or maybe the whole, maybe there was just like one point where it was just no words and you just saw pictures, only pictures. I don't know. Maybe I didn't like that. I don't know. Other than that, I didn't read it that much. I read it a few times growing up, but I didn't read it. I know my sister and my mom loved this book growing up, but I never read it that much. I did read it recently, and I realized, oh, well, this story's actually not that bad. I don't know why I don't know why I hated it. But yeah, other than that, great book. Next up, we got The Rainbow Fish. This one isn't too old, but it is a classic. This one, I did read this one recently. I don't remember reading it that much growing up, and this is another book I didn't read that much growing up. This is, I did read it recently, and I think it's a great book, and I think it's a book about, like, I think mostly the book is about, like, sharing or some, like sharing something you love with the world or something like that. That's what I think the moral is, and I think it's a great message. But I don't know. I never read this book. I think I read this book, like, a few times growing up, but that was it. Next up, we got The Giving Tree, a classic. I mean, this is Shel Silverstein's most famous book. This one's a classic. It's a beautiful, touching story, and I remember my kindergarten teacher reading this to us for the first time, and I enjoyed the story. Although I misunderstood the whole story. And I thought it was about a boy who just goes up to this random tree and just like gives, and like the tree like gives him apples, but that's it. And for some reason when I was growing up, excuse me. And when I was growing up, I thought the story was a boy going up to the tree, and the tree is just like giving him apples, and that's it. And I think the story is like the boy's like getting kind of suspicious about, like, why is this tree doing this or something like that. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but yeah. But then when I actually read it recently, I actually realized, oh wait, this story is completely different. What did I think the story was about? Anyway, I think the story also is kind of personal because it talks mostly about, like, oh well, the giving tree technically is something that like gives you stuff, and it just wants to see you smile. And I think that's like the moral. Like, I think it's like saying that, your parents are the giving tree. That's that's my opinion. Your parents are the giving tree. They will literally give you whatever the heck you want. Like, they will give you whatever they have, and they just want to see you smile. That's like the moral. And I think it's a beautiful message, and it's a really touching story and really beautiful. Overall, great book, and it's a classic. Everyone knows it. Next up, we got There Was an Old Lady Who Swallowed a Bat. This one, I've owned this one ever since I was born. I think my dad's owned this one for a really long time. This one's a Halloween-themed version of the whole nursery rhyme of There Was an Old Lady Who Swallowed a Fly. You know the story. This is a Halloween version of it. And it's a pretty funny one. I actually remember my dad used to read this to us every Halloween. And it was pretty entertaining. He would always read it every night, every October night, and we would get a crack at it. We would crack up. It's great. It's a pretty funny book, and I honestly think that, you show it to your kids. It's great. Next up, we got A Big Moon Cake for Little Star. This one was by the same author that made The Ugly Vegetables, The Year of the Dog, Ling and Ting, Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, Graceland. Yeah, her. This is a great book. I really enjoyed this book. I think the first time I read this was in I think 3rd grade, and it was during COVID. And I read it. Well, I read like an audiobook of it, and I actually really liked it. However, I never really read, like, I never really owned it. I don't think it's because we couldn't really get it. We couldn't really get it because, it was COVID. It was during COVID, so we couldn't really buy it. We couldn't just get Amazon and be like, yo, can you get this for us? But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it even though I never owned it. I was planning on buying it and owning it for myself, but I couldn't. Excuse me. I was planning on buying it and owning it for myself, but I felt like I couldn't because, well, there's not a whole lot of bookstores own it. But I eventually got my hands on one of these at a local bookstore, like near my house. And yeah, it's a great book. I honestly think it's a great book, and great book about Chinese culture. Next up, we got A Light in the Attic, another Shel Silverstein classic. I never read this book growing up. Everybody says that this is such a classic, and everybody said like, oh, this is so good, and oh, this is like the best Silverstein book ever. But there's a problem is that I owned it. I never read it that much. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this poetry collection, but I liked Where the Sidewalk Ends more than this one. I do remember the cover art. I do remember the poems. I just don't remember reading it that much. But other than that, I think, I think, it's a great poetry collection. It's probably his most popular poetry collection, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it's a great book. I just never read it that much. Now we're moving on to some novels. Next up, we got The Tiger Rising by Kate DiCamillo. I can't pronounce her last name. I did enjoy this story. I just didn't really pay much attention to it. I read this in 4th grade. I never really paid much attention to the story, but I did enjoy it. I thought the ending was pretty sad, but I thought it was a great story. I thought it was a great story, nonetheless. Next up, we got Holes. I remember reading this book in 4th grade, and I remember my 4th grade teacher showing us the movie Holes after he read the book. And I think it's a great story. I think the book and the movie are both really good. I think, like the book and the movie both have to do with like this like dried up lake, and there's like a camp there, and it's not a very good camp, and they're like making the campers dig up holes, and they don't really give a clear reason why. And then I guess in the end it turns out they're trying to look for some treasure that's been buried there for like thousands of years. And I think it's a great story. I think it's a great, book, and I honestly think that the movie is really good, and I think the book was really good. And I loved both. I loved both the book and the movie. My cousin Allie loved the movie Holes. I don't think she's ever read the book. I'm gonna have to ask her, but yeah. Next up, we got Lafcadio, The Lion Who Shot Back, another Shel Silverstein book. This one, I didn't even know this one existed growing up. But recently I found it at a local books at the same bookstore that I got. What was it? A Big Moon Cake for Little Star. So, but I discovered this book and I thought, I never heard of this book. And it turns out that's because this is actually Shel Silverstein's very first children's book. It's a novel, and there's no rhyming in it. Okay, there's no rhyming. It's just straight to the point. It's just an entire story. It's just straight to the point. I enjoyed it. And I thought the ending was kind of bittersweet, but it's also got it's got some great humor, but the ending's kind of bittersweet. But great story. It's a great story. It's a very funny and very, very good story. Next up, we got Because of Winn-Dixie. I really, really, really enjoyed this book in I think 3rd grade. 3rd grade, my 3rd grade teacher read this to us, and we all loved it. We loved this book. We absolutely adored this book. We thought the story was great. We watched the movie. She sent us I think my 3rd grade teacher sent me a link to the movie. like she sent it through, because we were in COVID, so we couldn't really we couldn't really buy the DVD of it. So she sent us a link to the movie on YouTube, and we watched it, and we liked the movie, and we also loved this. And I honestly think that both of this and the movie are both really good. So, yeah. And then I think in 4th grade, my 4th grade teacher read this book to us, and then he showed us the movie. And we were already like, well, you know, we've already seen this. We've already seen the movie. We already watched the book. We've already seen the movie. We've already read the book. So, you know, we already know the story. And we all love it. And, you know, that was basically what we were saying. Yeah, a little story there. Anyway, great book. I absolutely loved this book. I think it's a great story, and I think it's a great dog journey story. Next up, we got Hatchet. This one, I read this book in 6th grade, and I got it from my actually original 6th grade English teacher named Miss Castro. And I say original because then eventually they switched my class from Miss Castro to Miss Page. Anyway, Miss Castro gave this to me because she said this is a really good book, and I read this. I took it home with me. I read this. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a great survival story. I thought it was a great, story about, like being stuck in the Canadian wilderness, and, this kid named Brian, he's stuck in the Canadian wilderness. He's like 13 years old, got into a plane crash, and it's a great survival book, and he spends like nearly the entire summer there, and it's a great survival book. Pretty good. Next up, we got Runny Babbit. I will say one thing. I read this book once growing up, and that was it. And I literally mean I read it once, and that was it. I enjoyed it, but I never read it again. But overall, this is a great book. Next up, we got Ghosts by Raina Telgemeier. This is, we're moving on to graphic novels now. I really enjoyed this book. I thought this is a great story. It's a great story about, like ghouls and ghosts, and it talks about like this family moving to a town in California. It's like a Mexican town, and like every night, like, I think during like Dia de los Muertos, there's like family members come back to life, and they're like ghost skeletons, and they just like kind of roam around. And I think I thought this book was fantastic, and I thought it was really well made, and I thought it's just, I remember reading this like, wow, this story is so good. Anyway, the ending to this was pretty funny, but I think it's a great story, and I think it's also very touching because it has to do with family, and these two sisters are trying to get along and stuff. Well, they are already get along, but they're trying to take care of each other and stuff. But yeah, great book. And finally, we have A-OK by Jared Green. This one's another graphic novel. This one's a great story. I read this one in 8th grade, I read it in 6th grade, sorry. I read this one in 6th grade, and I loved it. This one, it tells the story of a boy named Jay who has acne, and he's in 8th grade, and it talks about his entire journey of like trying to live through his acne or something like that. And it obviously it's talks about like his entire 8th grade year, and like him like losing friends and also getting new friends and getting made fun of. And I honestly think, and during 6th grade, I didn't really think too much of this story, but now as a 9th grader, I actually kind of went through the same thing he did, except I don't have acne. But I think it's honestly a very relatable story now, and I think, except for the acne part, but I think it's a very relatable story now, and I honestly think that, the story was great, and I loved it. Okay, that is all that I have for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys watched this video all the way through, I really appreciate that. I'll see you in the next video.